Drones have revolutionized GIS by providing an efficient way to collect, analyze, and visualize geospatial data. Modern drone technology with cameras and sensors makes it easy to capture high-resolution imagery and acquire remote sensing information.
To learn more about how drones can be leveraged in your GIS organization, we welcome Jeff Petillion. He is the Imagery Products Specialist with Esri Canada and is joining us today from Kelowna. So really appreciate you being here, Jeff, especially under the circumstances.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I guess I'll touch on Kelowna a little bit. I know this is going to come out in the future, but right now in Kelowna, we've probably just had the worst, 72 to 48 hours in wildfire history. So it's been pretty tough. I think the worst is behind us. I'm looking forward to when things get better, and I'm just hoping for the future too, that you're seeing this kind of all over the world right now, all over Canada, even in Hawaii. So I'm just hoping going forward we can come up with some mitigations for this, because what we're experiencing, what other people have experienced so far this year, I wouldn't really wish that on anyone. So hoping for the best in the future here. So regardless of that, thanks for having me, and I appreciate being here.
Definitely. Thanks so much for being here, Jeff. And definitely what you said covers it all. Hopefully we can recover from this and not see so much of it in the future, and things stay safe in where you are in Kelowna. But yeah, thanks so much for giving us your time as our imagery specialist. Just to let our audience know a little bit more about you, we wanted to start it off by asking if you could share a little bit of your history with working with drones and GIS.
Yeah, you bet. So I think my history with drones goes back to 2018. At the time, I was working for an engineering company, and we were just really looking for new and creative ways to supplement our deliverables and come up with some new ways of analysis. So we started looking into drones. I got my license, we got a drone, and we were just kind of really blown away with the results. It was super easy to use, and the results were super powerful. I think around the same time too, I remember going to an Esri user conference in Vancouver. I remember actually seeing Mark there, but regardless of that, I heard about drone to map, and so I took that information back to my company. So I pushed for us to start using that, and I really liked how it integrated well with already the ArcGIS and Esri products we were using. And then I guess flash forward a bit later, around 2021, I started working with drones full time, variety of different projects, environmental, forestry. I was collecting LiDAR, and just really experiencing lots of new opportunities with drones and GIS. And I think that kind of helped me where I am today. Like you guys mentioned, I'm the Imagery Products Specialist here at Esri Canada, and I'm still working with drones, not so much in the field anymore, but still doing that analysis, helping customers, educating others. So drones still play a big role in my day-to-day.
Yeah, I know when we've talked in the past, you're so passionate about drones. What is it about drones and GIS? What do you like about it the most?
Yeah, so to me, when I think of drones and GIS, the one thing that really stands out to me is how drones empower GIS users to have easy access to high-resolution aerial imagery. And I think about in the past, getting some of that kind of data wasn't always so easy. You either had to pay for existing imagery, and that could be out of date, or maybe it wasn't the quality that you wanted, or you would have to contract out your data collection through helicopters or aircraft. So that could be expensive as well too. So nowadays, it's so easy to get a drone program started up. You can collect this high resolution imagery so easy. And really, the power is in the palm of your hand. So that's what I really like about drones.
Yeah, they're definitely so much more user-friendly and accessible than, helicopters or whatever you had to do in the past. Definitely.
I want a helicopter.
Well, it's a little more realistic. But you mentioned imagery, and I definitely hear about imagery a lot when it comes to drones. But is there any other type of data that can be collected using a drone?
Yeah, so when I think of the products that you would create from a drone, I usually try to break it down into kind of three categories to explain it. So that first category is going to be your orthomosaics, and that's the imagery that I was describing. And so orthomosaics are going to be great to use as for a base map, but they're also great if you want to collect measurements from your orthomosaics, or you see this a lot too, you collect multiple orthomosaics over time. And it's really great to see comparisons and how things have changed and use it for change analysis and that sort of thing. So that's the imagery aspect of it. But, there's more to it. That's the second deliverable I usually think of is like digital elevation models. So when you're collecting your drone images, they can be processed together to create DSMs or DTMs. And DTM is just going to show you your grounds. It's kind of like a poor man's bare earth, I call it. Or the other one I mentioned was a DSM. So that's going to include all your built up areas. So that's going to have, your buildings, your trees. So having these elevation models that you can create from drones is so helpful when you look at topography, elevations, you get contours from that. So it's a really powerful resource. And that last output you can get is your 3D meshes or your 3D point clouds. So those are going to be the basis for digital twins. And I think we all probably have heard that word by now. It's kind of a big buzzword these days, digital twin. So having these 3D, your 3D models, they integrate well into your digital twins. And if you guys don't know what a digital twin is, it's like any 3D representation of any real world object. So you put in your 3D data and, it's really easy to interact with, and that can all be done from a drone. So really powerful, these outputs you can get. So those are the three that I usually think of.
Yeah, so you have these different types of outputs that you described. How exactly are drones used to be able to create these types of outputs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So drones are going to use the process of photogrammetry. And what that is drones are going to be flying on a pre-planned flight path, collecting anywhere from hundreds to thousands of images that are overlapping that get processed together to make these outputs. So drones often fly in what's called a lawnmower pattern. So the drone is going to go back and forward with the camera facing down, collecting these overlapping images. And so that's going to be great for your 2D outputs, like your orthomosaics and your DEMs and stuff like that. But if you want to collect some more of these complex 3D outputs, you can add in additional flights where the drone's going to encircle your object with the camera pointing more down on an angle. So it helps collect, the sides of these 3D objects to kind of get these more complex outputs that you would see nowadays with your digital twins and stuff like that.
This sounds a little bit complicated as like a drone noob. Is there any Esri product or any piece of it, like tool or software that can help you with sort of planning that path and flying your drones?
Yeah, you bet. So I guess I'll just mention quickly here. So if you're interested in flying a drone, make sure you have the proper certificates in place through Transport Canada. You register your drone, make sure you're flying safely. I guess a little aside, since I mentioned the wildfires at the beginning, like do not fly your drone by a wildfire. It happens. So, if you do this, your proper training, you would kind of learn these things. But let's get back to the question here. Yes, you can get something called SiteScan Flight. So that's going to be an app for your iPad. You can use that to connect to your drone. And from there, you can do all your planning, your flight plans, the ones I mentioned earlier, plus lots of additional options available. It can connect to your ArcGIS Online, so you can bring in different layers to help plan out these flights. So really, really easy app to use, but keep an eye on the App Store in the future. They're planning on changing the name from SiteScan Flight to ArcGIS Flight. I think it's going to be a little more inclusive name, so just keep an eye out for that.
Another name change. Love it. That's great. So I can imagine you're flying these drones around and you're collecting these piles of images using your drone. How do you go about processing these images in ArcGIS? Yeah,
you bet. So, when I first started, I think I mentioned there's drone and map, but nowadays there's so many different options. Esri offers a lot of options that you actually might even have some of these options and not even realize it. In the advanced version of ArcGIS Pro, there's something called orthomapping. So these tools can help you curate your orthos and your DAMs. It's really easy to bring in your imagery that way. If your users have ArcGIS Enterprise on your enterprise portal in your browser, you have access to the Ortho Maker app, so you can do your processing there. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there's more specific drone apps as well. So we have our drone map and SiteScan as well. And those are all going to be specified for drone processing.
I've heard about Drone to Map and SiteScan. I've worked with them a little bit when I was in tech support, but I'm not really still exactly clear on what the difference is. Like, why would you use one or the other? What's the difference between those two different products?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Drone to Map, that's the original one I mentioned, and that's going to be your desktop processing software, whereas SiteScan is going to be cloud-based, needing an internet connection. And I mentioned earlier SiteScan Flight, which is the app, the flight app. It's going to be integrated with the SiteScan Manager, which is the online browser portion. So they work well together. And that means while you're in the field, if you're collecting your imagery with your drone, those images can be automatically pushed up to the cloud for processing, saving users a bit of time. But it really comes down to where do you want this processing to take place? Do you want it on your desktop? Do you want it in the cloud? And something else to consider is, do you have some established workflows in place already? Maybe you're just looking for the processing engine, so maybe Drone to Map would be the better way to go. But if you're starting out from scratch, I definitely recommend checking out SiteScan.
Boy, that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for clarifying that, because I always get confused about the two as well. All right, we're just running out of time here, and with this segment, we always like to wrap the discussion by providing some takeaways for our listeners. So, if listeners are really interested in getting started to working with drones, what do you recommend? How do they get started?
Yeah, you bet. So I reiterate again that if you want to get started with drones and flying a drone, first you want to do is understand how to fly a drone safely. So make sure you look into getting your license with Transport Canada, learn how to fly safely. After that, maybe you'll start looking into getting a drone. There's so many options nowadays at a variety of price points, a variety of features. But just something to keep in mind if you're looking at a drone, the technology is changing so quickly nowadays. So just make sure if you're getting something that it's compatible with the apps you want to use it with. And then maybe after that, you can start looking at some of these processing options. Like I mentioned, you might even have ortho mapping available for you in ArcGIS Pro. So definitely check that out. It's going to be really powerful. And if you're looking for something more specific to a hands-on resource, in September, Esri is offering a free imagery MOOC it's called Imagery in Action. And that's going to cover imagery workflows, including drone processing and data collection. So definitely check that out if that interests you. And, at the end of the day, it's practice. Like the more you use these drones, you'll come up with what workflows, what settings works for you. And again, just fly safe. I haven't flown safe in the past, and I've crashed multiple drones. So don't do that, but maybe that's a conversation for next time.
I want to know. No.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to hear from you again to learn a little bit more about what we shouldn't be doing with the drones. But thanks so much for sharing with us today, Jeff. I know I have a MOOC to sign up for now, so lots to learn. And thanks for introducing us to the drone product.
Yeah, thanks so much. Maybe I can come back when Kelowna isn't on fire.
Yeah, hopefully that happens soon. We want to get rid of those fires. Thanks for joining us. That was Jeff Petillion, Esri Canada's Imagery Products Specialist, who joined us today from Kelowna, British Columbia.